Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're gonna deep dive into one of my absolute favorite kitchen tools of all time, and that is kitchen knives. So I'm super excited to share my favorite knives with you, the ones I would recommend that every home cook have in their kitchen, and show you the ways that I use those different knives. I want to talk about the basic knives that every kitchen should have. So if I was going to start from scratch and have a super minimalistic kitchen, these are the handful of knives that I would definitely own. And then a few that are nice to have as well. I filmed this as part of another video all about basic knife skills for the home cook and knife safety, because that is super important when you're dealing with sharp knives. But I decided to break it up into two parts so you can go back and watch the previous video for all of the slicing and dicing, mincing, and knife safety. And this video is going to be all about the knives. So let's get started. Let's talk about what makes a good quality knife and what to be looking for when you're buying knives. So first of all, I think the main thing is that it is very well made and it has like a medium weight to it. It shouldn't be too heavy, but it also should not be flimsy, thin. It needs to have a beautiful, sturdy blade. I really like that this goes all the way through to the handle and it makes it really strong and durable. If you buy good quality knives, they're gonna last you a lifetime. You can sharpen them over and over again. They're good quality. They're not going to chip if you use it correctly, obviously, and they're gonna last you for years and years. You definitely don't want to buy those cheap knives that are just stamped out of metal and they're not good quality. You can't sharpen them too much. I think knives are such an important tool, maybe the most important tool to have in the kitchen. So before you start investing in fancy appliances, I would go and get yourself a really good quality knife. And you don't have to have a giant set of knives. If you just have a few basics, you're gonna be good to go. I personally am not a fan of buying big collections of things, like a knife collection or a collection of cookware, because I find that a lot of times there's so many pieces that you don't actually use. So it's actually more economical to buy just the pieces that you want and will actually use, and then you don't have a bunch of knives that you're just storing and never using. So I'm going to show you the knives that I think every cook should have in their kitchen. The first one, and the one I use all the time, is a chef's knife. Mine is 6 inches. It's smaller, but that's because my hands are relatively on the smaller side. For me, it's much more comfortable using a smaller knife like this than a bigger one. This one is 8 inches. It's the exact same knife. It's a chef's knife, and I use this one too, but not as often as this one. So for the day-to-day regular chopping, I reach for this one. It is really easy for me to maneuver it. It's easy to use. It feels comfortable in my hand. This one feels a little bit big in my hand because, like I said, my hands are kind of smaller. So, but I like to have a big knife as well because there's certain things that you just need a big knife for. For example, cutting watermelon, butternut squash. If you're gonna use a smaller knife, it's not gonna go through all the way through the watermelon. It doesn't cut through as evenly if you have to use a smaller knife. And there's just things like butternut squash that if you use a really small knife, you can cut yourself basically. You want to think about using the size of knife that fits with the job that you're doing. You don't want to choose a small thin knife for something that is bigger in size or needs a lot more heft and weight to cut through it. And same thing, you don't want to be using this big giant knife when you need to do something small like trim the ends off of vegetables like your carrots or your onion or something like that. That is the job of a paring knife. And I have two that I use a lot. This is the same brand as these knives. It's the Wusthof brand, and I have a lot of those knives. I really like them, so I've been getting different sizes and styles of knives from this brand. But this knife is also really good. It works so well. I actually like this one better. It's thinner. This one, it's not too heavy, but this one is much more lightweight. But I use this one all the time too for little jobs Like I use this just as much as I use the chef's knife. So like I said, trimming vegetables, different small jobs when you just need to peel something, and it's perfect. You definitely need a paring knife. Another knife that I think everybody should have is a serrated knife. The blade works so well for things that have like a harder surface and then are soft on the inside, like bread, tomatoes. So this is really great for things like that. And sometimes even bell peppers, I like using this. It works kind of like a saw because of the serrated blades, and you're able to cut through smoothly without smushing your vegetables and your bread. So this one is great. I really like this knife, definitely another must-have. These are the knives that I think everybody should have. They're the basics, and if you just have these, you can cut everything you need for your cooking. So a smaller chef's knife, a larger knife, and then a paring knife and a serrated knife. I'll share a few other ones that I really like to cut with, but they're not necessary. They're just nice to have. This knife right here, it has these divots in the blade, and this is really nice for things like cheese that are like sticky. They kind of like when you cut through, they stick to the knife blade. This helps them not to stick to the knife blade, and I really like this shape. It's really nice for chopping. So I would use this a lot of times for many things that I would use a chef's knife for. So I do use this one quite often. If you cook a lot from scratch, then this knife I think is another must-have. It's a boning knife, and it's just what it sounds like. It cuts around bone. It's great because it's thin at the end right here, and it's flexible enough to cut around bone. So this is really nice because I do take apart whole chickens, cut around bones, roasts, things like that. So this is really awesome for tasks like that, cutting lamb chops and stuff like that. So this is awesome. It works so much better because it has that thin blade at the end, and it's nice and flexible. If you don't take apart a lot of meat, then you don't have to have this knife at all. The rest of these are just extras. I really like having extra knives because especially when I'm cooking a lot, doing a lot of meal prepping, I end up using almost all of these, and I don't have to stop and wash dishes, so I can move on and use the same knife that I need for another task. So I have another one with these divots in. I can't remember what this type of knife is called, but I really like this one as well. I have a utility knife, which is kind of like a little bit bigger than a paring knife, smaller than a chef's knife, also comes in handy. And then I also have another really large, this one is really heavy, and it's a large chef's knife. Also, I love this for really big jobs like the watermelon or whatnot. So this one is nice to have as well. But like I said, these are my basics and what I recommend to everyone. Since I'm talking about knives, I cannot not mention these kitchen scissors. These are so cool. I use them all the time. I've already done videos talking about them, and they just are an extension of my hand in the kitchen. They're so useful. I definitely recommend having kitchen scissors as part of your knife collection. As usual, this is not a sponsored video. Nobody's paying me to share these knives with you. We bought all these knives ourselves. I'm just passing on what I really enjoy using in my kitchen and sharing it with you. Lastly, let's talk about taking care of your knives. So I recommend that you hand wash your knives. Don't stick them into the dishwasher. They're gonna last you much better. They're much less likely to get damaged. And of course, keep your knives sharpened. There's nothing worse than a dull knife, and you can easily sharpen your knives yourself. This is the knife sharpener that we have. It's electric, it's very easy to use, and it just makes it so much easier to keep your knives sharpened right at home without having to find a professional knife sharpener. If you know somebody who does it and you like doing that, that's great. But from my experience of talking to lots of people, they just never ever sharpen their knives. So this is a really great tool to have to maintain your knives in the best possible condition. In the back, I also have a honing steel or a honing rod. This thing actually does not sharpen your knives at all. It just realigns your blade. So this is great to use in between sharpening, but it does not sharpen your blade at all. you actually need to use a whetstone, and it shaves off a really smooth, thin layer off of your knives, and that is what sharpens them. There are other knife sharpening tools that you like put on the counter. I've had several of those, and I would recommend you stay away from them. If you look closely after you sharpen your knives through it, you like pull your knife through it, and if you look closely at the knife, you'll see that it creates gouges in the blade, nicks in the blade, and it just ruins your blades. Those things just do not work very well. So get one of these if you want to do it yourself. Like I said, very easy to use. And if not, then take it to a professional who will sharpen it for you. Don't use metal, glass, or stone cutting boards. They quickly dull your blades and ruin them. And remember, your knife is not a can opener, so please don't use it to pry open cans. Unless you're a butcher, steer clear of hacking through bones. That's a surefire way to ruin a good blade. Now let's talk storage. I love this knife block that I have in my island. Keeps my knives secure, it's easy to access, it is great. Keeping your knives stored safely will protect the blades from damage and prevent accidents. No one wants to rummage through a drawer filled with knives. It's not just bad for your blades, but also a little dangerous. Well, there you have it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into what I would argue is the most important tool in the kitchen, our knives. I'd love to hear what your favorite knife is. So what do you reach for when you're chopping? Drop that in the comments below. If you want to level up your knife skills, check out my previous video where I show you all about chopping, mincing, julienne, chiffonade, and all of those things, all while keeping your fingers nice and safe. I also have another video where I show you how to sharpen your knives at home like a pro. Trust me, it's a game changer. Thanks for watching, everyone. Keep your knives sharp and your knife skills even sharper. I'll see you again next time. Happy chopping.